Hi everyone, it's Lennon. This is August's Mindsight video, and I guess I just feel so proud that I was able to just jot some bullet points down on paper back in December and really kind of stick with this whole thing that I got going, right? And I usually just put either one word or maybe a couple of phrases down and just kind of try to intuitively wrap my head around those phrases and then pop out some ideas where I can kind of condense all my thoughts and then make them into a video. And sometimes it's harder than others. Like last month, I think my word was junk. And I took that word and ran with it because my whole point, I guess, with Mindsight has been to take some various topics, mix my spiritual practice and how I like to put myself into my own practice and mix it with what it does to the body, what it does to the mind, and what it does to the soul, and just kind of jumble all that up. And then maybe in December 2020, maybe even January 2021, I'll be able to physically look back on what I've journaled and what I've videoed about and look back in hindsight. So I know I do this intro almost every video. But anyway, the word for August, because I'm an alliteration queen, is abyss. Now, at the beginning, I think that some of the phrases that I wrote down were like abysmal, chasm, iceberg. I think even in one of my journals, because I just have like so many around the house, I think in one of them I put like dark night of the soul. And so I started researching what other people have said as far as like on psychology websites, psychology articles, and maybe even some blog posts about some personal accounts. And my personal account was not all the way dark night of the soul. Mine was more of an abyss. And I think that there is, the way I gather this, the abyss, or wading the abyss, so to speak, is not the dark night of the soul. The dark night of the soul is just like that. You are severely alone. You have a lot of what I will say is negative things happening in your brain, and that affects your body, and then in turn that affects the soul. And it's basically a severe soul cleanse. And I think that in terms of a spiritual death, this is a painful death. This isn't just you went to sleep and you didn't wake up. This is a painful death. You are physically paranoid about what is going to happen. You have no clue, and it's the unknown, just like in regular human death. That is where the big fear lies. And so dark night of the soul was something, in my opinion, it's something way outside of the parameters of what we're talking about today, which is just the abyss. Now, I picture the abyss kind of like the cliff in the Fool card. We're all basically having in places in our lives, there are moments where we do have to step off the cliff, because if we don't, there is like kind of a sleeping beauty, rosy thorns behind us, and that's the you that we think we are. And we have to get out of the forest of thorns, so to speak, but then the only thing outside of that is a cliff. And we have no idea what's on the bottom. There's a lot of questions. There's a lot of uncertainty with the cliff and what's below, and you have to physically leap off the cliff. And like I said, like the dark night of the soul, it for my leap, it felt very, I was more worried about what other people would do with the new me, more so than I was worried about me. And not that I wasn't concerned about what what my new leaf on life was going to be like, but more so that it was going to be like, if I become a new person and I have a new mindset and I am getting rid of what's not serving me and possibly getting rid of people who don't need to be around me anymore, and I value myself as a person enough to shed them, what is that going to do to them? Like, are these relationships that I would potentially sever, how are they going to take that? Is this, yeah, this process is what's best for me, but how will they in turn view me? Mine was very much like that. It seemed to be right when I became a mother for the first time. And I just felt like I was on the cusp. I think I had either just had my first baby or I was still pregnant with my first baby, like end of pregnancy. And I just started feeling so different. And then it was a scary time because I was about to birth this human and I had no idea who the hell I was. It's almost like I started remembering that I was like remembering and getting flashes of who I needed to be, how I grew up, and then and I started asking myself, how did I end up here? Like, why am I allowing this person to talk to me like this? And why am I humbling myself and walking on eggshells for this person? And I started to ask myself those questions until finally I was stuck in those rose bush thorns. And when I walked out and I saw the cliff, I'm just using this analogy, okay? It doesn't really feel like this. There's a lot of active imagination here. When I was looking down at the cliff, I thought, okay, my point of leap was when I think that my leap was after I had my baby, because I remember feeling those first mom jitters. The very first time I gave my first kid a bath, the water, I guess, was too cold, and they screamed the entire time that I was bathing them. And I was ugly crying the whole time. Now, my tension was reverberating through the child as well, through my firstborn. And so he was already uncomfortable, and then I was already like in a state of like, and he was feeling that as well. So it was just a vicious cycle. The whole 30 minutes I was trying to bathe him. And I remember thinking one night laying in bed, and I remember feeling like, those thoughts that you get like, oh my God, they're so fragile. Oh my God, what do I do? What do I do? You're just constantly asking yourself, what do you do? What do you do? Now, I know that a lot of people go through the abyss and dark nights of the soul and have never gone through motherhood or fatherhood or anything. So, and that's okay. Okay. This is just a little bit of my account here in this one abysmal thing that I've been through. And it felt like I kept asking myself the motherhood, the typical motherhood questions. And then like kind of doubting my own instincts. First of all, that was big for me. I was doubting myself with everything. But then I was like, wait a minute. I was already questioning some of the people in my life, some of the things that would be floating in my mind. I was already questioning those things. And so who do I want to be for this child? Who do I want to be? Who do I need to be to mother this child? I have to be completely me. I mean, otherwise I'm doing neither one of us a favor, right? How am I supposed to raise an authentic human when I'm not being true to myself? So that was when I took that leap. And it was scary. And I don't mean to put the analogy so hard on you guys to where it seems like this was actually happening to me, okay? Like inside this analogy, but there was a lot of journal work. Basically what it looked like was there was a lot of journal work. There was a lot of process of elimination work where I would have to journal about things that I like to do, get back in touch with who I am. And it was really hard to do because I was a new mom. So I didn't really have a lot of like free time to just kind of sit and meditate on these things. So when he would be napping or when like he would go to sleep for the night and I would be in my bed and we would kind of be laying there, but I was on the cusp of sleep, I would actually have thoughts. And then luckily, sometimes I would be able to remember them the next day and journal about them then. And I've said this in a lot of videos for years and years and years, okay? I've always carried a notebook around. I tend to write a lot of shit that goes on in my life down. And that has severely helped me. So that's just one way I was getting through this, is just by getting it off of my chest and out of my mind, so that it wouldn't seem to be filling up the filing cabinets that were already not being able to be closed because it was full. Now, let me explain the abyss for just a second. To me, in my opinion, the abyss is, here's a cliff and there's this big V-like chasm here, and there's a little cliff on the other side, like this. And the chasm is in this. Now, the chasm doesn't have anything in it, but you swim or fly around in this chasm, okay? I can't do this with my hands. Anyway, I think I'm gonna draw a picture of what I envision the chasm, this abyss, to look like for the activity at the end of the video, so stick around. But basically the abyss is like a spiritual initiation. So when you start asking yourself those questions about who you are, you start trying, you look internally, but because you're just starting out on a spiritual journey, you don't know how to go within yet. You don't know how to introspect. For me, my problem with introspection came with the religion that I grew up in. I've talked a lot about this. I'm very passionate about healing from religion, because that's what the basis for my spiritual practice has been, a lot of healing work from the religion that I grew up with. And there was a lot of emphasis in that religion, in that particular Christianity that I was raised in, for external help. When something was happening to you, you had to gain the forgiveness from these gods, and you had to pray and pray and pray and pray. And it was never about you. It was about, and really it hindered my relationship with the divine, because I feel like I have a better relationship now that I'm able to heal a lot of parts of myself and maybe get some external help as well. But I did need the help to go inside, and that was never a thing. I mean, every time something bad happened, or every time I was feeling bad, even like a little bit, it would be like, oh, just pray about it. And I never felt that a satisfaction with, oh, like the faith-based. I never had good faith when it came to praying, and then I was just not supposed to do anything. Like I'm not supposed to do anything. What is my vocation here? When I pray to you, is it just off into the ether? Like, ooh. I had big problems with that, because I was always wondering, okay, well, what's my job now? Like, am I just supposed to forget it? Because that doesn't work that way. Brains don't work that way. So I had problems with that in the beginning, but I feel like when I severed myself from the religion, and I went years without a religion and without a spiritual practice in general, I was kind of like waiting there like an atheist. But then something happened, and I got into tarot, and well, I was always kind of witchy, right? So I was researching, and I had started out my journey with witchcraft in research. But then I keep chasing rabbits. I kept chasing rabbits, and then that kind of led me learning about introspection, and learning about meditation, and learning about how to go within. And then within that, I was like, oh, well, now that I know how to go within and how to introspect, after a few years of getting, because I'm never really, I don't want to say I'm an expert, but now that I've had a couple of years where I felt comfortable doing the introspection, then I started looking for the external help. And I thought, okay, well, how do I do that? Because I know that I can't go back to the specifics of my old religion. So it got kind of confusing there. And that's about the time where I got pregnant. And I don't know, that whole couple of year time frame, it felt just, there was so much, it just feels like that was just jumbled up thoughts and confusion when I had my first child. The biggest portion of me was when I was introspecting, and then I would look for external help. I really started to build a spiritual practice from the ground up, and it's helped me the last couple of years. My kids are teenagers, so it's been about 13 years since I've had a really good, solid practice that I've kept up with, and that's benefiting me. And that's where I wanted with this. But then when I'm talking about the abyss, there was a lot of confusion, and it was the point in which I wanted to be authentic, because I wanted to be an authentic parent so that I could raise an authentic child, mini human. Within that whole process of the abyss and leaping, it felt like that's when the severance really happened. The severance of self and my childhood. That's where I started to learn. I learned so much in that time frame about not only introspection, but then past traumas, belief systems, mindsets. Oh, well, they must, the judgmental type of mentality that I tended to have with other people, and if they didn't think the way I did, and things like that. And I just, along with my own confusion about who I was on the inside of myself, I was also awakening to the fact that, well, in not being true to myself and not being my authentic self, in the introspection, I started realizing, well, then I need to shed the mindset that molded me in the religion that I grew up in. And then some of the past traumas that I endured, there was a lot of shedding that came along when I would go within. And I think that that's what the abyss is that when you hit the water, so to speak, okay, I'm going to keep going with the analogy here. When you hit the water, I like to picture this, just for the analogy here, like you're wearing one of them really heavy Victorian dresses. I love watching those videos, all those videos on YouTube, like how they dress in the Victorian era, and they've got like 15 layers on, and okay, a good example, Pirates of the Caribbean. She flies off of the, turret there at the beginning of Black Pearl, and he has to cut her out of the dress. Well, first of all, you see it weighing her the hell down till she's floating to the bottom of the ocean, or falling to the bottom of the ocean, and she can't breathe, and he cuts her out of it, right? He has to shed some of that like the outer layer to just get her up. So that's what I feel like, is that you've got different hang-ups that are hanging off of you like Christmas tree ornaments, and you've got people and you've got mindsets that are hooked on you like barrettes, and you've got all this thing stuck to you that's weighing you down. And in order for you to get to the other side of where the new you is, standing there, like I picture the new me looking like a ball of light, like in a human shape, kind of like a good Sauron, like just a human shaped ball of light over there, and I have to get to it and just suck it into myself. So I feel like the heavy stuff that you're carrying when you fall in to the abyss, you have to cut some stuff off of you. And it's going to be really hard because you don't have a life raft or a lifesaver at all, one of them circular things. But you have to shed. You have to get completely naked, spiritually speaking, to get to the new person, to get to the new you, the light you over the other side. Also, for like sci-fi fans, I am a lover of, I guess you could call this like old sci-fi, like Stargate and like science, good science lessons within the TV shows, right? Like Stargate. And that's all on wormhole travel, right? And how the particles disintegrate through the wormhole traveling through subspace. But with teleportation, all the particles and molecules, the particles that make up you in teleportation are destroyed. And then, like, you're taking a puzzle that is you, like a puzzle box that has all your pieces in it, and you throw it in the fire. And it's gone and destroyed. And then on the other side, it's like you've got a shiny new puzzle box that's the new linen, and it jigsaws you a new person, a new mindset. So that's kind of a good way to look at it for me, is I'm teleporting. Now I know at the beginning of this video I said that the abyss is the you, but when I get to the abyss, like when I jump off the cliff, I kind of think that that is in turn the new me is in the cliff, in the chasm, but it's more so that that's a liminal space for me. That is I'm still my old person and I'm in the process of shedding shit. And then it's not until I can make it to the cliff on this side where I will open the puzzle box and put myself back together. So the chasm to me is like a very liminal space where I am the old me and the new me all in one chasm. During the abyss time and kind of during the dark night of the soul, there are moments where up until these points, you've thought that your deity had your back, or you thought that your parents had your back, or these toxic relationships had your back, or the universe itself had your back. And in these moments of just utter despair and not knowing and being paranoid and being basically on the bottom of the pit, or you're white knuckling the edge of that cliff, really, really wanting to be on the bottom. You really want to shed the things that you need to be the new you, but you're white knuckling. You're just stuck to the to this life, to this you. It's really hard to know that you want to be the you that needs to be you, but you still have limitations back here behind you in the rose bush. And so I found that to be one of the biggest challenges for me, was that I kept wanting to go back into the rosy thorns. And there, once I learned that the new me, even if my entire view of what the universe is changes, I'll have to relearn. And I had to validate that within myself, that it was okay to relearn everything if that's where it was going to go. Now, I didn't have to relearn a whole bunch of stuff. I've always been pretty open-minded with a lot of shit, okay? Like the universe and deity as a whole, divinity as a whole, my relationship, what I want that to kind of look like, what I've always wanted it to look like. I've had kind of a broad view of what I wanted all that to look like. So when I got to the other side, I just didn't have to rebuild and remap my entire thought process. A lot of those things stayed the same, just because that was who I was, and that was part of my core authentic self. So I was very fortunate for that. But there are people who go through the abyss times and the dark nights of the soul that don't have that. They really do get shed. They're shedding so much that when they step into the new you, the new them that is the new them, they realize that all the things that they thought they trusted, they have to rebuild. And it can be hard to be standing on that precipice of, I trust this pain that I'm in. I trust this inauthenticity. And I have to rebuild everything on the other side. How do I begin to trust in myself? And I think that those are big obstacles. How do I fall back in love with the universe again after all these things have turned its back on me and left me alone to be standing on this cliff? One thing to end this chat, okay, I'm really not talking about much. One thing to end is what I have found about my spiritual practice that has benefited me, and especially benefiting me in times of these abyss times and possibly even the dark nights of the soul, is knowing that my spiritual practice is progressive. It's a moving practice. It's an evolving practice. I'm not standing still. As a human, I'm going to keep evolving and keep changing. Therefore, my practice will keep changing. And as long as I'm open to that and open to the change that will be me and continue to keep being the new me, even if sometimes I hit roadblocks and I hit those abysmal times where I have to jump into the chasm, I have to remember that my practice is evolving. And it's the first jump that's always the hardest, like finding things that keep the air moving. Keep the air and the aura around me moving, and keep it vibrating. Keep the me that is me vibrating and not stagnant. And not necessarily with new bits and bobs, witchy stuff and spiritual iconography or spiritual ephemera. It doesn't necessarily have to be new things that I'm purchasing. It could be a new band, a new song, a new mindset. Now, is it easier to stand still? Is it easier just to stand on the cliff and stare down in the chasm all day? Sure, it's definitely easier. That's not the point. You can stand there, but like I said, that's kind of another type of liminal space. You're standing on that precipice. You have to think, is standing on this precipice benefiting me? To sit here crying, soul crying for what's at the bottom. Is it worth it? And really, when I think of standing still and life is moving, but I don't have a spiritual practice that's progressive, and I can't continue to find things that make me an individual, things that I love, new records, new albums, new photos, new books, because I'm a book lover. I'm always buying books. New bands, like a new song. What are some things that I can continue to incorporate that keep me happy and keep me going? And when I picture standing still, because it's easiest to do that, I think of that Thank You song, that music video by Alanis Morissette, where she's just standing there naked, and there's like this whole like whirling dervish of life moving around her. I kind of think of it that way. Do I want to be that, or do I want to be moving? And no, this does not have, it's not the same analogy as like you're moving so fast you can't think, and life is going to continue to move, and you have you're constantly being told stop and smell the roses. It's not life. This is spiritual. There's a difference. And even if your pace in life is fast, like most of us, that's okay. There still needs to be a spiritual practice that you have that gets you through your abysmal dark night of the soul's time. And when you have that, I believe that it is easier to get through those things. To officially end, before I tell you the exercise for this month, I'm going to share a quote by, I cannot pronounce their name, so I'm just going to leave the quote and the name below for you to check out, but it just says, "The mind creates the abyss, the heart crosses it." And I love that. Okay, now for the exercise, it's going to be really simple. Sometimes I have exercises that seem like they're like nothing, like just like meditations or whatever, but this time I want you to reflect on something, because many of you maybe that are watching this video aren't going through actively an abyssal time in their life. Okay, maybe you are, but if you're not, and you're just kind of watching this and just kind of chatting with me, that's fine too. But I want to think about the abyss the way in my opinion that it kind of unfolds for me. I think of it like something I'm not prepared for. And when I think of the abyss times that we go through sometimes spiritually, I like to reflect on things that I have gone through in my life that I was not prepared for. It could be something as simple as a pop quiz that in school, but you still kind of think of it. You're like, I still cannot figure out why Mr. Sanders popped us that quiz that day. Like, we were all really doing good that week. The lesson seemed to be clicking with us all, and he just popped us on that damn quiz on a Thursday, not even a Friday. And it still kind of sits in the back of your mind like, I just wish I had it prepared better. And those are the types of things that I like to reflect on. And I feel like reflecting on those uncomfortable things that have happened to us, and that we were not prepared for. And this could be spiritually, emotionally, this could be just life shit. I mean, one time I wrote down that, it is real. When you put a red shirt in with the whites, everything turns pink. That wasn't a myth. Like, I've written that down before. It took me doing it to realize that shit's real. But it could just be those things. Something that you have gone through lived through, survived, but you were not prepared for. When you reflect on those things, I think that along with healing music, healing images that you have in your mind that help you in those times, along with those, also knowing deep down you have survived things that you weren't prepared for before, having those validations within yourself is very key for me. It's key for me to get through certain things. So, okay, that was August's Mindsight. Come back next new moon for some more Mindsight 2020 love. Much love.